Good evening and welcome to Good News and Entertainment. I'm Carley Boyette. So happy you are tuning in tonight. A little later, we're going to hear about a powerful film inspired by true events and stories called Still Hope. But tonight, we start with a new series called Seeking Beauty. It's a first of its kind faith-based travel series with the goal to bring together audiences from all walks of life in a fun, loving exploration of culture, architecture, food, art, and music that point people to the beautiful and divine. The series airs on the EWTN network and is hosted by actor, producer, and director David Henrie. You may recognize David from hit shows like How I Met Your Mother. He also starred in feature films such as Grown Ups and Mall Cop 2 with Kevin James. David is also the co-founder of Novo Inspire Studios with a goal to create family-friendly content. But most importantly, David is not shy about talking about his faith. Before we hear more, let's go ahead and take a closer look at Seeking Beauty.
What if beauty was something more than we see? What if it was something we seek?
I can see how you can find God here.
I'm David Henrie, and I've always believed there's more to beauty than what meets the eye.
This is just, it is breathtaking.
So I set out to search for something more. We're traveling across Italy through Rome, Florence, Venice, Milan, and more.
I like Milanese people. I think I'm going to get used to it here. I'm normal.
Exploring the people, the culture, and the sacred art to uncover the beauty that's been speaking to hearts for centuries.
Michelangelo has found the Lord at the end of his life.
It makes me emotional.
Along the way, I've met monks, musicians, artists.
I get fired up about this stuff, man. What role do you think the artist has to play today?
Even a few fellow pilgrims.
Viva España!
And each one has helped me uncover deeper meaning.
Trying to understand the mind of Caravaggio.
Because beauty isn't just decoration. It's the language of the soul. Come, join me to see how timeless beauty still speaks to us today and how it just might change the way we see everything.
Man, what a treat. I can only imagine how fun this was. Did it feel like a vacation or did it feel like work?
For my wife and kids, it felt like a vacation. It definitely was fun for me. But yeah, we had a lot to get in. We had a lot to do. It's an important show. You know, for me, what excited me about the show is it kind of flips what you expect from a travel show on its head. So it's not an expert walking you through beautiful places in Italy. It's you. You know, it's me embodying you, just asking the questions I think the average person would want to ask in these scenarios. Have you ever been to a place or a museum or in front of something beautiful and just kind of blown right by it, taken a peek, looked at it, and just kind of moved right on by? This show helps give you the time you didn't have then to pause, to understand, and to go deeper on some of the most beautiful works of art, poetry, music, architecture, food, wine, in the place that helped build the Western world, Italy. So it really, I think, is the fun of a travel show, but goes deeper.
Where did this idea originally spark from?
It came from a guy named Edmundo who brought the show to me. Edmundo was in front of a beautiful work of art, and he kept watching all the tourists come in and just take a look and move by. And this particularly was a Murillo in Spain that he was seeing, and it was the Immaculate Conception, which is a very important painting. It's a painting that has huge impact on the history of Spain. And he just felt like, man, it's sad that people aren't taking a moment to actually understand how significant this is. You know, it's like, wow, that's sad. And so that sparked something in him where he was like, I want to make a show that dives deeper on the beauties of Europe. And starting in the heart of Europe, which every country in Europe will argue with me over this statement, but starting in Italy, which Rome very much is the place that I think helped really build the Western world, and I think is the heartbeat of Europe. That was important because the faith started there. You know, Matthew 16:18, you are Peter, and upon you I'll build this church. So Peter's bones are there. It's the place that it all started, it all expanded from. So to start there and then move outwards was really important for us. And we go all over Italy. So you're going to see Florence, Venice, Rome, Subiaco, Milan, you're going to see north to, the middle of Rome, middle of Italy a lot.
Tell us about what this trip and working on this did for your faith personally, because, you hear this all the time. We're so guilty of it, myself included. We can be trapped in this American bubble, pulp culture here. It just seems like it's almost impossible to not have your faith expand, and you just see things in a new light when you're able to travel. And I love that you're offering that, a little taste of that.
Yeah, exactly right. This show shows you a different people and a different culture and a different way of thinking. Growing up in America, beauty, for me at least, the places I grew up in, it wasn't a part of the conversation ever. Or if anything, it's superfluous. It's a cost that can be cut. Yeah, if you got any money left over in the budget, then sure, we can doll it up a little bit. But all you need is 4 walls, a door, and some windows, right? The old mind didn't think like that. The old mind thought very differently. It thought, how does this building impact the faith of the person? That was on the forefront of the mind of the people building these towns. How do we build a town that can point people to God? A lot of times the roads in these old towns, you could see the church from every street. They purposely designed it to where it was the heartbeat of our town is the faith, and everyone must have easy access, right? Because how could you build a town if the faith wasn't the most important thing in the town? So, and by the way, it must be beautiful because God is beautiful and we cannot shortcut that. Look at the nature, look at what God has built, look at creation. He didn't shortcut beauty. So everything we build must exude his glory. The architects would say things like, let's build a church so grand that future generations will think we're crazy and it's all for the honor and glory of God. That was the mindset of these past generations. Because remember, these people couldn't read. Reading wasn't a thing back then. The Bible wasn't a thing in the way that it is now. The Bible was these stories passed down. And in order to spread the Bible, it cost the equivalent of millions of dollars because you had to have a monk sit in a room and perfectly copy every single word to make sure it was perfectly matching all the other ones. And if it wasn't, a bishop would come along. If there was any error there, a bishop would come along, he'd cut his hand and slap it on the Bible to say, this isn't the word of God. It needs to be perfect. So to have a Bible back then was a huge deal because it was so every word was written by hand. So it needed to be protected so that way it could be read by as many people as possible. So you hear these old stories of they chained the Bibles to the desk so no one can read them. In fact, it's the opposite. They chained it to the desk so everyone could read it so it wouldn't get stolen. Because it's literally sitting people in front of a cache of millions of dollars. So it's they chained it there so you could read it. But the problem was people didn't read. So when they built these buildings, they put the Bible in the building. A lot of these churches have all of salvation history on the walls. So, and the faith of those people were incredible. In fact, I'd say a lot of them had more faith than we do today. And we have our Bibles and we can read every word. They didn't have that, but they had the stories. They had the truth. They had the tradition passed down to them. So to get to go experience, that was a long-winded answer.
No, I loved it though.
To get to go experience I get fired up about this stuff because get to go experience these cultures is very different than I think the modern American mind, and just such a beautiful counterweight to make you go, I'm gonna think about this a little differently.
Well, does it inspire? I love that you've done this series. As soon as you hear Christian travel series, you go, wait a minute, what? We don't have any of those. Does it, because I hear from filmmakers all the time that point back, to that it used to be that the faith was the center of what art looked like and culture looked like and what everything was. And here in America, it's not quite that so much anymore. I think we're getting there. I think we're having a resurgence
Amen.
Of faith-based entertainment. Did this make you want to go, you know what, there's an audience for this?
100%.
And I have some other ideas floating. I can only imagine answer would be yes.
100%. You're exactly right. Yeah. The time is now. I think we're in the middle of a new renaissance, a new movement. And I think the time is now to do this type of thing. Like you said, back in the day, the church was on the forefront of the culture. It was in every conversation. It was using all of its resources to produce the most beautiful art to help shape society. And we've lost that. But I think people are picking back up the torch now and going, hey, culture matters, and the best way to affect culture is with beauty.
How has, you being a Christian in this space been for you? Because from what I understand, I do think more people are being a little bit more vocal about it, but I know that probably hasn't always been the case. And from just my research and kind of hearing more about your story, I think you definitely lived a little bit without God in the entertainment industry in the beginning. And then now, obviously you're walking with him, which is just the coolest thing, and more people are needed. But how has that journey been for you?
It's been a messy one.
That's okay. They all are.
I'm very glad now I'm on the right path. Like everyone, we all fall, but we got to get back up. At least I have hope now. Before it was just, I call it the bubblegum theory of pleasure. Before, I was just living for the next piece of bubblegum. I was just living for the next accomplishment, the next thing, but it always lost its flavor. It always lost its savor and didn't give me true happiness. So the faith now, yes, life is still hard and that's just life, but at least you have hope. We can pick up our cross and follow him. The times have changed. The times have changed in a beautiful way. People in the entertainment business are much more tolerant of faith. In fact, the opposite. I'm sitting with executives all over town saying, the faith community is underserved. We need to serve them with content. And I'm like, yes, we've been saying this for like 10 years, but like, I'm glad we're finally coming around to it. It's time.
It is time. Well, and I'm glad that you were seated at the table and contributing. And
thank you very much. Thank you.
Again, congratulations on this new series. And I look forward to seeing what comes next. And there's, again, like I mentioned, more places to travel to. Is that on the agenda? Do you think?
Yes. So we already shot the second season in Spain.
Okay. All right.
The second season will be coming out towards the end of this year. We shot that in Spain. And then more plans for more in the future. But yeah, we're excited.
Again, Seeking Beauty is airing on the EWTN network. Go to seekingbeauty.show for more information. All right, now to that powerful feature film I mentioned at the top of the show. I want to warn you, the subject matter is not ideal or appropriate for little ones that may be around, but it is important parents, families, and community leaders pay attention to what we're about to talk about. And that is the goal for this film. Still Hope is inspired by true stories that talk about the hope and healing that can come after sex trafficking. The film premieres in theaters nationwide February 5th through the 9th and seeks to raise awareness of the global issue of sex trafficking and the vital role of recovery resources for those healing from trauma. In fact, we're going to hear more about that in just a moment as we hear from Catherine Lee, who is a strategic partner of the film and the founder of the Pure Hope Foundation.
How do you feel about forgiving the people who hurt you?
I don't think that's not going to happen. What they did was unforgivable. I used to be normal. I didn't get to choose anything in my life. Everything just happened, and I just had to take it. Now I can't sleep. I can't breathe. I didn't choose to leave behind everything in my life that was good. It was them who did this to me. And I am never going to forgive them for that, ever. I can't.
When we're hurt, we hold all of that hurt in our hearts. But when we can forgive, we can finally be free.
Oh, Catherine, we have chatted before we hit record here, and I'm so excited about what God has been doing through you, through your organization. So let's start, I guess, how your organization first got involved with this movie and again, kind of your perspective on bringing the two together.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here. Well, we at Pure Hope Foundation started over a decade ago. And the producer actually of the film, Brent McMinn, was a friend of mine. And he came like, what are you up to? What are you doing as a businesswoman? And now you're doing this anti-trafficking work. And he came out to visit one year to see what we were doing and to invest in the ministry, and came back the following year. And the young women he had met the year before, he saw such a difference in who they were, right? That they found out who they were again, right? That's why I love Still Hope, because no matter what happens to the character in the film, but also to us, we are who God made us to be. And trauma and pain refines us, but it doesn't define us. And he saw the difference and asked them, what is the difference? You're like a completely new person. And they said, we learned to forgive. And that began this journey of the Still Hope film. So that's why I love the film is, yes, we have to know the atrocity of trafficking exists so that we're brokenhearted or mad enough to do something. But we have to remember that healing is possible, that this is something that we can address, and that people can heal. And we all have healing to do. We all have forgiveness to give. And if these young women can do it after what has happened to them, I hope that everyone will walk away going, I can forgive and I can heal too.
Well, and what's so interesting about this film, there's been several films over the years that have dealt with human trafficking and, put a spotlight on this. But this is different because this really shows the after, just when you get rescued, these, the story's not over.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's such a privilege to walk alongside. We like to say we get to hold them or walk alongside them while Jesus heals them, as they are willing, right? As they are saying, I want this. And so for us, the difference of this film is the continuum of care, right? Awareness is important because if we don't know it's happening, you can't do anything about it. So that's important, but it can't stop at awareness. Then you have to take action, which some people call the rescue. But the truth is these young women and young men, boys, children, often they rescue themselves in a lot of ways, right? They're brave enough to ask for help or receive help, like Hope did in the film when somebody says something and you're willing to be courageous enough to say that. So there's that stage of leaving, being courageous enough to step out, to leave, to allow yourself to be helped. All those things, so important. And then the stabilization, right? Getting off the drugs, getting your biology out of total fight and flight that sometimes has been there for years and just stabilized. But then there's not just the surviving, but the thriving. And that's the work that you see in the second half of this film that is so inspiring to me.
I have goosebumps. Obviously, the biggest theme is forgiveness and how that's going to look different for people. I think it's some ways some of the hardest things as Christians we're called to do. Talk a little bit about that, on how your team is able to help walk these women and other victims through what that looks like.
You can see that even the process in the film, and we won't give too much away, but the process of immediately saying, oh no, I will not. This is not deserved. And we actually wrote an entire curriculum on forgiveness as an asset for the film, because the test audience, people kept saying, I know I quote unquote need to forgive, but I don't know how. It's this concept we talk about, but we don't always understand the process. Yes, it's a spiritual thing, but it's also a mental thing, an emotional thing, and a biological thing to release really what that person has done to you. They've put a chain to you by their actions that you did not deserve. And breaking that chain is the decision. So in the curriculum, we talk about making a decision with your head, wrestling in your heart, and letting God do that. And you see that in the film. And then often extending a hand to serve in the very issue. So you get your power and agency back. And that is what's important about forgiveness. It is not for the person. They owe you a debt. There's no question. If you have been hurt, especially the way these young women have been hurt, they owe you a debt. But it's releasing the debt so you don't have to be tied to the debtor, the one that owes you that debt. And then you get to live free. And the power of forgiveness is something until you have truly experienced not just the decision. I always point here because that's the frontal lobe of our brain, that part that God gave us to choose. That's one of our superpowers, is to choose. And then though, right, you don't always, it's not just one and done. Sometimes you have to do the work of forgiveness to get the release, and then the pain turned into purpose. And that's what these young women, it's the whole reason they did and consulted on the film and let scenes of their stories be used, because they wanted purpose to their pain. And if it could help one other person, they wanted to do that. Pretty powerful.
I love that. Speaking about coming together, I want you real quickly, if you can, to talk a little bit more about what you do there. You're in Texas, but you love partnering. Part of the beauty of this film too is, putting a spotlight on the other communities in, around us throughout the United States. You're not the only one. So if people do want to get involved, if they do want to help, what do you suggest, kind of getting involved with this?
Yeah, I love it. So when this film came out and we were working together with the producer and the team, I was like, we have to collaborate, right? The traffickers are super organized and collaborate, and we need to collaborate and be organized together. And so we have on our website, we have ways that you can get involved. You can nominate organizations to receive funds. As the film is successful, there'll be more funds to give into this issue. There's a ton of generosity from the producer who put the money behind this, where he wants to continue anything that is given to this to make a difference. So you can nominate an organization, go volunteer locally. Certainly pray for all organizations and all phases of the continuum of care, right? The awareness, the rescue, quote unquote, the healing, but also this is a big one. The advocates that are walking alongside this care about those people, the staffs, their salaries, how they're paid. My team, it's so incredibly important to me to love on those that are walking alongside these young women, because it's hard work. So they're doing the most important work, those that are surviving, but the ones that are walking alongside them. So it's all of us together. So at our ranch, we actually do advocate retreats, respite retreats to love on them while they are loving on those out there nationwide and really even globally.
I'll give you kind of here the last word. Invite people to come out, watch this movie, and then, what do you hope that the next step is from there? What's your take home?
Yeah, excellent. Well, Natalie Grant, who is also a part of this film and endorsing it with Hope for Justice, we really both are saying, get involved, right? Do something, pray, give, volunteer, talk about this. Have your church host a showing. We're going to have ways that you can host a showing after it's out of theaters. There's going to be a lot of ways to keep this message evergreen, to keep it going, because healing and forgiveness don't go out of style. And until trafficking is defeated, there is something for all of us to do.
How do you feel about forgiving the people who hurt you?
This idea of forgiveness is central to our faith. Forgiveness ultimately is a way for somebody to be set free. It is a way for the past to not have a grip on their life anymore. It's the heart of the gospel, and that's the story that we wanted to tell, the story of forgiveness.
I first learned about human trafficking in 2004. I'd never even heard the term before. I was home from touring. I was watching my favorite television show, Law & Order Special Victims Unit, and they were doing an episode showing children being sold out of the back of a van in New York City. And I just remember thinking, if children were being sold out of the back of a van in New York City, we would know about it. I literally went to Google and Googled, what is human trafficking? And that is where I learned for the first time that there are more slaves in the world today than at any other point in our history.
Still Hope is a movie about a 16-year-old girl who, like most 16-year-old girls, wants to be loved and wants to be known. She thinks she finds that through a friend online, and unfortunately, that friend was not who she thought he was. Hope is taken through this journey and experiences horrors of this world that most of us cannot even comprehend.
Trafficking begins with a lie and a promise of love. And that really is the truth of how all trafficking begins. You see Hope come into that darkness deeper and deeper and deeper and really lose who she is. And that moment shifts something in that person. That moment where they're standing out at the hotel room door and they say, go in and do what she tells you to do. That was actually one of our young women's exact story. They're literally choosing in that moment between death, literal death, or doing something that no human being should ever have to do.
There's been a lot of other trafficking films that have told very powerful stories. Ours is different. Our story really gets going where most of them kind of end. I'm going to give it away, but she gets rescued. And so the rescue moment happens halfway. And I think most people aren't ready for that, and they think the movie's over. But the story that we're trying to tell is really the second half.
We get to look at her journey of healing and restoration, and what does that really look like when you've experienced hurt and trauma beyond anything that anybody should ever experience. As Christians, we like to throw around this word of forgiveness. Jesus forgave, we are commanded to forgive. And what does that actually mean? What does forgiveness really look like in practice?
How do you feel about forgiving the people who hurt you?
I don't think that's not going to happen. What they did was unforgivable.
We got to meet with the two girls that this movie was based on. At the very beginning, they said, we did not experience true freedom until we forgave.
When we can receive forgiveness and when we can give forgiveness, that is where freedom is. It has nothing to do with saying what you did is okay. What it has to do is saying, you no longer own me, you no longer control me. Because you can be free from your trafficker. I can be free from people that hurt or betrayed me, but you are not free if they still control you. And that is what forgiveness does. And that is why it is essential to a healing journey.
I really want audiences to walk away from the theater feeling encouraged and inspired. Forgiveness is for everyone, and that has been one of our main goals from the very beginning, is telling a story that communicates the gospel and the restorative power of forgiveness, and that God's grace is sufficient, and that's a radical idea.
It's actually really easy for the numbers and the issue to overwhelm us to the point where we stay paralyzed, thinking we can't do anything, that nothing that we do is actually going to make a difference. It's easy to see millions of people are being trafficked, but God sees millions of individuals, and we just help the ones He sends. That if we just focus on the one that we can help, the one life that can be changed, the one life that can be restored, then we understand that every single one of us not only can make a difference, we must.
I want to thank you again for tuning in tonight. I'm Carley Boyette, and I look forward to seeing you next week right here on your Christian Television Network.